may not know, Jeb is our assessment guru for this year. He's the assessment TOSA for the district. And so he and I are doing our best to learn MasteryConnect so that we can be an expert and a resource for all. We hope that when we go through everything for today, you'll be able to at least get a better understanding kind of district assessments, and as well the kind of the scope and sequence really of DIAs for this upcoming year, at least for trimester 1. So thanks for joining us for K2 DIAs and MasteryConnect. I'll let you go ahead and get us started, Jeb, and kind of work through what is our goals for the day or our brief session together. And just understand that, you know, we're not expecting anyone to be an expert after today's session, although we'll cover the bulk of what you need for today's first interim assessment. Just know that there's full day trainings on MasteryConnect, and some of us had the pleasure and opportunity to go over this summer. So there will be more stuff with regards to MasteryConnect, so don't feel that you're going to get everything you need after today's session.
It'd also be fair to say by the time the training is done today, you may have questions. So please feel free to either put them into the chat for us to answer to you later, or reach out to us. Our emails will be included at the end of the session as well. So we'll be happy to answer those questions as they come up, as you explore the product on your own, if you start messing around with the system prior to us producing trainings for you. With that, let's move forward. So we've got some decisions to do today, some discussions to have. First off, we need to discuss the DIAs themselves. And we need to remember DIAs, the district interim assessments, are created as a benchmark, a linear mark across all grade levels, given at the same relative time with the same relative material, mainly for our English language learners. So there is a cohesive test that they can be measured against across all sites. And then that is used for reclassification, assessments, and all sorts of different levels. So these need to be accomplished across the board. The exception of that would be where there's SBAC testing, so that most groups will be doing 3 DIAs. Those who are actually doing SBAC testing will only be doing 2, the third being the actual SBACs in time comes. Our DIA windows, you notice below, we've got 3 different windows laid out, October 11th through November 12th. These are a 4-week window. They just need to be accomplished sometime in that window. You'll notice there's a window of time there before winter break. So our first goal, especially with this first DIA, is to get everyone comfortable, accessible, and through the DIA process before we go to winter break. The second semester is a much tighter schedule. That schedule deals with balancing the LPAC, the CASP, science testing, a whole host of other things that we all know that we have to deal with on a regular yearly basis. So for this kinder first and second, we want to make sure you're comfortable and able to move forward properly and smoothly with the system. And we've done our best to create a process that's going to get you to that point. What are the actual DIAs? These are going to be exactly the same standards, and in some cases, the same questions used in 2019, 2020. So I want to put them back up here so we remind ourselves what we're testing at each grade level. So in kinder, we're looking at reading foundations for print, letter recognition, phonics, high frequency words. In math, we're looking at part A and B. We're mainly looking at writing numbers and simple mathematics. Grade 1, we're looking at a phonics survey, reading benchmark, high frequency words. On the math side, we're looking at select responses and multiple choice within the math process at grade 1 level. Grade 2, we're looking at writing a simple narrative and some multiple choice questions to support the ELA learning. And in math, we're looking at a multiple choice section as well. The DIAs are actually located as a hard copy or a downloadable PDF copy for you in Canvas. They're in the curriculum instruction and assessment course, which has been created, and it's been standing, Gabriel, for 2 years now. Am I correct? And Gabriel actually made it. So I'm going to let him take over at this point and actually discuss what's actually in there as we move forward.
Thanks, Jeb. So I really want to make sure it's very clear that that if we're not already clarifying for you the fact that, and we got a couple emails over the course of the last couple weeks, you know, asking with regards, hey, I know DIAs are coming up. Where is it that we're going to access them? I'm trying to click on IO and just not understanding. MasteryConnect is our newest version of our data and assessment application. That's what we're going to be utilizing, and that's why we're getting through this. Understanding that even though the assessments themselves are housed in MasteryConnect, and even though you have the ability to access those assessments, even in print format, primarily if you're wanting hard copy assessments for the folks in this room, at least for K1-2, they're going to access most of those through the Canvas Commons course that we have created. the CIA. So I know some teachers were saying, I was clicking on the DIAs from last year in my Canvas Commons course or in our Canvas course, and I'm not seeing the new updated ones. So I want to be clear and make sure we understand that the way it works is you're going to have to either update your course if you had pulled stuff in from last year, or if you hadn't done that, I'll walk you through how you could be able to pull that stuff in now. So that's the first thing. We're going to be able to see how can you get access to those hard copy versions of the district interim assessments. And again, they're housed in Canvas. And then once we finish that, we'll look at how can you access Mastery Connect and how can you essentially get those same assessments to be able to administer if you wanted to for your students on the computer, and or if you wanted to be able to, and you're going to need to at some point, to record into those scores so that they're accessible to all. So let me go ahead and share screen in a moment, and I'm going to emulate what it would look like for us if we had already done it and we were kind of updating, if you will, stuff that we had already pulled in from last year. And while I'm doing that, I just want to make sure we're all clear. There's a lot of information coming our way. We were at the pleasure of sitting in last week at a super user training for Mastery Connect. And even today, more as we dig deeper, more questions kind of pull. And we saw to see, hey, there's some things we're not clear on. We called over to Mastery Connect and had some conversations with the person over the phone. So this is all new in terms of not only for our district, as we know, but also new in the idea of for a lot of districts that are utilizing both Canvas and Mastery Connect, and how seamless it can be once we kind of get over our learning curve for all of us.
And there's a certain power and ease of use once this structure is set up. The problem at this point is getting that structure learned and then set up for everybody fast enough and smoothly enough as we're trying to, as we've said before, build the plane while we're flying. So we're doing our best to make sure we make that as smooth as possible for everybody.
Share screen for me. All right, so if I was a teacher and I had pulled it in, you may have seen our course. It looks something like this in terms of your interface. And I know there was some issues where people were pulling things and replacing their Canvas courses. So I just want to make sure you understand, where is this even housed, whether you had pulled it in or hadn't. And so the first thing is understanding that where is this located? If it's not already here underneath your unpublished or published courses, you can come to where it says Commons. So I'm inside of Canvas and I'm going over to Commons. And as it loads, let me just slide this over so that my Zoom screen isn't blocking this. You may see an indication here that you had already had something that was updated. So, or you may see it up here. For me, I logged in as a different teacher to kind of make sure I'm emulating what are you going to experience. And I saw a notification on the top right. If you don't see that, you can see updates here. And it tells you what has been updated. So in this case, just today, I uploaded the newest version. And so you could simply click on update if you had already had that. Again, what if you hadn't? Maybe you're new to the district, maybe you're new to the grade level, and this isn't something you already had. So if that were the case, you can always pull stuff from Commons into your course. I would encourage you, if you don't have a sandbox already created, which you probably all do, you maybe create a faux course, because you don't want to pull this stuff into something you're already doing and just have it kind of mix and muddy the waters. So, so let me go ahead and just say, if I were doing that, we'll put courses or dashboard rather. Let's just say I wanted to start a new course, call it 2021, 22 DIA, or you can even call it CIA. I'm going to go ahead and create that course. Again, this step isn't necessary had you already done it, but we're going on the premise that you hadn't yet. So from this juncture, I have my full course, nothing's in there. I want to pull what I showed you is available in Canvas Commons. And so I'm going to go to import from Commons. And if you don't see it populate there, you can go ahead and type in CIA. I'm going to go ahead and take off the templates. If you don't see it pop up under CIA, I'm going to go ahead and type in curriculum. And there it is. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to click import or download. If you wanted to preview, you can kind of see where they're at. I want to be very clear, there's a distinction between the assessments that were used last year and this year. I know Jeb alluded to it earlier, that we're rolling with what was utilized pre-COVID. So if you're looking at, hey, I'm just already have this course, I already have everything from last year. It looks similar, but it will say the year distinction. So I want to make sure we're very clear in understanding that. So I'm going to click import and download. And what course do I want to pull it into? This is just the one I had already pulled. Again, if you wanted to pull it into your sandbox or maybe another course that you had, I probably would just encourage you not to pull it into the course you're utilizing with students. And I'm going to go to import the content. And once I do, I should have access to the assessments themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm going to stop acting as this user. Give me a second here. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. So once you have that, whether it's published or unpublished, that's not going to matter too much. You want to make sure that you open up wherever you had placed those files, and you're looking for essentially where it says district interims. And here, this is what I was referring to earlier, the distinction between what last year assessments and this year. Last year, this was the first year, so there wasn't any years. Now you can see that we have 21, 22 distinction. So if you're looking for a kinder teacher and I'm looking for ELA assessments, if I opened up this right here, I would see what for trimester 1, of course, what are all of the different files and components that are going to be here. Now you can preview them here, they're embedded. I know Jeb ran through in terms of kind of what would be expectation for each of the content areas quickly, albeit, but we kind of get an idea. Just know that you have the access here. So again, this is where you could see the hard copy version. You could download the files themselves if you wanted to, but we're assuming that this would be an excellent resource for you as teachers to be able to say, I want to see and preview the test, not inside of MasteryConnect. I prefer just to kind of access and see hard copy. What do these files look like? Here's your one-stop shop to do that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the home. And again, I just previewed for kindergarten. You can look for any of the grade levels if you scroll down. The bulk of us here are for kinder 1st and 2nd, so you should easily see what are your various assessments. And we did our best to include Spanish as well for our DI folks. I think everything is there. One of the things, if you were looking at pulling in the update, is the fact that it does say tentative. And that's one of the biggest things we want to drive home, that curriculum committees are still looking to meet. So while we don't foresee there being much, if any, changes for DI1, just understanding that it wasn't as if Jeb and I sat down and kind of decided everything for you. We are going off of the understanding of this is what it's going to look like for that first trimester. And then kind of, if again, barring any major changes, just knowing that this is what we're going to proceed with. And at this point, I would assume that, but again, I want to make sure we're very clear in communicating that. So that's how you would access the assessments themselves from our Canvas Common Course. Again, if you already had this, you can see from the comments, there should be an option to update. It's as simple as clicking update. If you hadn't pulled it in, it'd be the process of creating a course and then pulling that from Commons. There are resources and videos and tutorials that walk you through this process that I just went over. So if it was too quick, just know that you have the ability to do that. I'm going to transition to showing MasteryConnect, but before I do that, I want to give you a chance, maybe a few minutes, if you didn't already, to kind of just update that course for you if you'd like, and or to be able to pull it in. And then we'll shift gears into seeing the other way. So as opposed to looking at hard copy, what about this MasteryConnect you keep speaking of? What does it look like? How am I accessing it? And all that nitty-gritty stuff. So I'll give you a couple minutes to try your best to either pull it in if you had it or update if you already had it.
While we give people a chance to play with the system and pull this forward and get the updates up, if you have any questions, you want to just come off microphone and ask out loud, you're welcome to do that as well. Gabriel, looks like we've got an error in chat. I noticed that second grade DIA number 2 for ELA is labeled grade 1 on the documents. Is that correct?
I'll take a look at it, and if it's a mistake, then we'll correct it and we'll make sure. Thank you for letting us know, bring it to our attention. Please, by all means, I don't doubt that there may be some mistakes or oversights. Hopefully none or minimal, but if there are, let us know and we'll do our best to amend them. So to be clear, there isn't an invite to the course, but we can make sure you understand that you can access it from Commons. But if you have other questions related to accessing the hard copy, through the CIA course, let us know and we can individually troubleshoot. All right, I think I'm gonna head over and show you Mastery Connect. So let me go ahead and share a screen and we'll run through that. I'm utilizing a teacher's account, so what you are seeing for the most part should replicate or mirror that. So one of the biggest things I want to drive home, and we ourselves are again, as I mentioned earlier, are learning a lot, but the fact that Mastery Connect can be accessed in a couple different places. Even though it's all housed in Instructure, even though Instructure and Mastery Connect have merged, really, if you will, knowing that you have options in terms of your global navigation, which basically means your blue bar, and that's this right here, but you also have Mastery Connect available and accessible to you inside of your course navigation. So I would suggest, and we will give you a chance to be able to do this, to really go over to your course this year, the course that you're operating under. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on this teacher's course. And from here, again, I can see that there is, scrolling down in the course navigation, this mastery tracker. Now, for some reason, and this is the case, I know some people, maybe you were utilizing your Canvas course, and I know that we've learned from last year, we can clean this up, that a lot of these things that we may have already by default are no longer maybe needed, and so we hid them or remove them. You're going to need that mastery tracker from your course navigation to at least enact this next step. So I'll quickly run through. If you missed it, you're saying to yourself, I'm looking, I don't see this mastery tracker. Why is it? Maybe you hid it, maybe you removed it from your course navigation. So if that were the case, you can always come to settings. It's not gone, it's just not there temporarily. And when you come to navigation, these are all of the things that are privy to your course and your course navigation. If for some reason, let's just say mastery tracker wasn't there, it was down here from the disabled items, or hidden items, you can always pull it back up and you can move it however you see fit. Now, I'm not saying this is where students are going to access all of the things. I'm saying that this is where you would need to be able to kind of get the ball rolling and utilize some things. So while you have access to Mastery Tracker outside of it in our global navigation, that's probably where, based on my conversations with those individuals that were getting trained from Mastery Connect, it seems like more of a one-stop shop, a little bit less cumbersome and less things. So I'm going to go ahead and save. I'm going to go back to my home. So I'm here and I'm going to go ahead and click on Mastery Tracker. Now, one of the biggest things is most of us probably don't have a tracker. Now, again, how you set it up here, it's going to be slightly different than how you would set it up if you went directly to Mastery here. But we're going to walk through this step, and just because I feel it'll be a little less cumbersome. So I'm going to go ahead and say link Mastery Tracker. And what I'm doing is, in essence, is I'm allowing Mastery Connect to be able to communicate and work within my actual Canvas course. In this case, all of my students that are synced with our SIS Aries is all here. So I'm going to go ahead and click link Mastery Tracker. And one of the biggest things when we were talking about this tracker, which essentially is a way for you to keep tabs on your students, is really in essence what it is the fact that you can add your own. So like if I'm a kindergarten teacher, a first grade teacher, a second grade teacher, I'm going to add potentially my own tracker by my grade level. The beauty of what we're communicating with Mastery Connect is you would have to add the standards. So let's say, for example, in our case, we have, an English language arts assessments for DIA, and we also have our mathematics assessments. So rather than you needing to add standards from the language arts and the standards from the mathematics, and kind of creating more clicks or more work for teachers, they have the option to us to be able to create these curricular maps. So I and Jeb together have done our best to be able to create these curriculum maps. And really, in essence, we're just kind of putting it all together in one place for you as teachers. So if you see the option, I know earlier I was working over the phone because a couple teachers, as I was emulating accounts, didn't have this where it says create a tracker from a curriculum map. If that's you, let us know. We're still working through some bugs, but in essence, here's how it works. I'm going to go ahead and select create a tracker from a curricular map and to see what are the maps that are available to me. So you can see we have this grade K DIA. The way we try to structure it is by grade level. So if you are, for example, maybe you're a combo teacher and you have a K1 combo, because in Aries, the way you're set up, you fall under the category of not only a kindergarten teacher, but also a first grade teacher. So in essence, you'd be operating underneath those two separate Canvas courses and creating a separate tracker, or in this case, curricular map for each of those respective grade levels. But by and large, most of us self-contained one grade level. We're going to select our one grade that is given to us. If I'm kinder, I should see the option for a curriculum map that is saying grade K. If I'm first grade, I would see grade 1 DIA. So I'm going to go ahead and say, this is the one shared with me. And there's the title. Now it defaults to subject. That was the way kind of it limits, because it's the idea of maybe you have for separate content areas. Know that Jeb and I have lumped together both the language arts as well as the math standards all here. So I'm going to go ahead and say link, and this is really imperative. If you had not gone this route, let's say maybe you went through the global navigation, which, hey, that's what I did when I was first learning this, and that's not wrong. Just know that it's an extra step that you're going to have to come over here to be able to link. Because I had created a tracker and I said, I don't understand. I made this tracker, I followed the steps, I watched the video tutorial, and for some reason, I'm not seeing it inside of Canvas. And I think that's one of the beauties of having Mastery Connect merged with Canvas, is the fact that it really should all be there for us. And in doing it this way, again, it's a little more streamlined for us. So I'm going to click link. And as it loads slowly, you'll see it populate all of my standards across the board. And because, again, we put both the language arts as well as mathematics, those would be the 2 district interim assessments or benchmarks that we're going to be taking this first go around, and for the most part throughout the course of the year. You will see all those standards populate across. Now, we are creating the benchmarks or the district interim assessments. And as opposed to thinking in the past, if you're familiar with IO, you as the teacher, we need to go in and you need to find them, which is the right test I need to administer. And I'm going to go ahead and schedule that and all of that process. Because of the way it's synced up here, from the district level, we're able to push out those assessments so that once you sync up your curricular map, or in this case, in essence, your tracker, those assessments are automatically going to come to you based on what you teach. So I can see right here, and I'll scroll across, give me a moment. Those are all of the standards. And I don't want to give you a headache, but just know that that's for all of the things. And as the assessments check, if you will, some of those boxes in terms of the standards, you will begin to see scores populate here in the respective columns if that standard was assessed, right? So this is one of the biggest things I want to make sure you understand. Everything kind of will be here inside of Canvas, but unless you set up the assessment from this tracker or / curricular map, you're not going to see it inside of your Canvas course. So this is very imperative. Once we kind of set up our curricular map / tracker, we have the benchmark, and you'll see them pop up here. And this is a faux, just a sample one. So this isn't necessarily the official math or the official language arts portion, but just know that that's an assessment we set up here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And then you see this button that says assess. You can go ahead and click on it. Now, again, this is only one standard because it was just a faux sample demo test. You may see assess populate underneath the various standards, because most of our assessments are going to hit multiple standards within a given content area. You may be wondering, well, which one of these assess buttons am I going to click? I see like 3 or 4 of them for this particular assessment. Just know that you're going to click any one of them, and that's kind of going to get the ball rolling for the assessment. Now, you may see here where it says assess with test ID. We don't need to do that because of the way that they are connected. Could you, if you wanted that option, by all means, but I think most of us are going to prefer to leave it inside of Canvas so that our students don't have to do anything. And so want to make sure you understand it already created for me the assessment here. I'm going to go in and close it. Notice where it says benchmark rubric. That's the rubric assessment. And I could always click here and I could grade that here. That's one of the things, if we're one of the grade levels that is probably going to administer in a small group setting or in a one-to-one setting, you're not going to be able to have your students go and take the test on the computer. If that's you, you can record those scores and you can input them or in here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Launch Performance Grader. And that's where you get the options. So kind of think of it as your speed grader. Now this, just go ahead and ignore the document there. Know that if it were, for example, let's say it was a reading fluency assessment or the writing assessment for 2nd grade, that you would see the document that correlated to this assessment. This is just something I threw together for the purposes of today's training. And know that you'll see the criteria here. That would be the rubric. So let's say, for example, this was based out of 10 points. I would go ahead and just click the amount of points that my student earned, and then I could go to the next student. Kind of almost like SpeedGrader, if you will. But essentially, this is where you're seeing all of your students, and you're able to input the score manually for your students. At our training that we had with the Mastery Connect specialist, we had asked, is there a way to be able to default so that, for example, let's say most of your students, for example, if it were out of 10, as this example is, maybe most of them were operating at a score of 7. Is there a way to automatically auto score so that each of the students got that? And then, of course, you could individualize They said they're working to be able to see if that's a possibility. But at this point, it looks like we're going to be able to score individually our students based on whatever the results may have been if you're at rubric. Now, that was, you go ahead and cancel that. That was for this particular assessment. Let me go back, and I want to make sure you understand. If it were something, for example, I know second grade, the expectation is that our students are going to test on the computer. And if they're going to test on the computer, you want to know, well, I'm not going to manually enter their scores for them. They're going to take the test on the computer. Where do they go? What are our students going to do? Now, remember, I mentioned there is a session ID, but that is not something that they need to do because of the way we structured it. We've linked Canvas and MasteryConnect. So in that case, where would our second grade or other grade levels that may be taking the test on through MasteryConnect go? You have it automatically pop underneath assignments. So here you'll see that there are two. One of the benchmark demos that I had created was with the rubric, and you kind of saw me emulate that. But the other one is more so if there's questions, the students are reading a passage and they're answering individual questions. That multiple choice that is going to be prevalent in most of our assessments. So I'm going to check real fast. I think it may be this one. But in essence, it always pops up under assignments. So again, the assessment was automatically pushed to me because I set up that curriculum app / tracker. And then where did it go? I clicked assess, and that's kind of set the ball in motion. It automatically set up here inside of Canvas, and it's going to default by coming into assignments as unpublished. So if you're unsure and you want to make sure your students have access to it, come to assignments, as I just did. Look here, and it's always going to pop up at the top, and you should be able to see the assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one. One of them I had called rubric, and I don't recall, I think it was demo was the other one. Here we go, benchmark demo. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the assessment settings. I'm going to publish it, which I could have done from the previous screen, but here's where I really want to make sure we drive home a couple of things. One of the things that we went through as I was playing around and trying to learn myself, I realized, you know, I did this, but it's not popping up in my gradebook, or I did this, but I'm not seeing it here. And that's one of the things I want to make sure you understand when it comes down here at this portion. So this is really important when it comes to assignments in terms of when it's due. Because if you think about the way we have structured our Canvas courses, we have these various grading periods, trimester 1, trimester 2, trimester 3. And if you recall last year, maybe you did, you weren't putting some of these due dates in. And of course, we understand that that may be your choice, but understanding that if there isn't a due date, where would this assignment live or house or be located really throughout the course of the year? So it defaults to going to the last grading period. So we want to make sure that when you're creating these, again, this is more so if your students are taking the test online on the computer, you're going to set up this due date so that it matches the until window. Now, because of the way the benchmarks are constructed and because they're going to be pushed out from the district, you aren't going to have control to be able to adjust the until window. That'll be defaulted for the purposes of this demo. Just kind of put October 15th. But I did notice that if you have different times, it's going to throw back a, that's not going to work. So let's say, for example, I wanted October, again, going off the same date until, and if I said 15th and I give a different time, it's going to throw it back right away. Let's say 12 p.m. Oh, not that one. Sorry. When I click on save and publish, I was getting issues. You want to make sure that it matches up. In this case, oh, not PM, AM. And then I'm going to save and publish. And what that does is this creates it so that it's facing my students. So I will in a moment emulate a student, and I'll kind of show you what it would look like for that kiddo that's going to take the test. But before I kind of go any further, we've kind of gone over a lot. We just went through where would I access MasteryConnect? We went over how would you be able to kind of sync or link really your course with a tracker, again, notice as a curriculum app. I want to give you guys a chance and opportunity to at least kind of click on that button in terms of inside of your course navigation and see what it yields. And then of course, we'll be able to show you after a few moments, what would it look like for your students as they sign into your Canvas course and they're wanting to take the assessment on a device.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those who've been in chat, sending messages to us about being able to get in or not into certain areas, I've been writing down names and recording your responses so we can get to them. Obviously, being able to repair them all during the session probably won't happen. So if you can just absorb what you can from what we're feeding you, and then as soon as we correct the errors or find out what's going on directly with your particular situation, we're working on it. We'll absolutely get on it. Some of it may be just a matter of not enough practice. Maybe it's not linking properly with Aries or with Canvas. We've had issues here and there across the way. We will dig into those on your and by your requests and see what we can do.
And then I'm just kind of going through it as I was speaking, seeing some of the people asking questions. And so I want to make sure, yes, Mastery Tracker is what we're going to, or Mastery Connect is what we're going to have to utilize. So if you are saying, well, I'm not planning to administer the test online with my students, and that completely works for kinder first grade folks. We're not telling you you have to, but understanding where would those results go or live or be housed so that the district could keep accountability aspect of things. And that's going to be inside of Mastery Connect. So whether you are going to administer face-to-face, one-to-one, small group setting, what have you, or even on the computer, everything is going to go the route of Mastery Connect. And as Jeb said, you know, we'll do our best to address and kind of work through some of the issues as they come about. But, you know, just understanding that we are going through today's purposes is to kind of show, here's what it would look like, here's what we're going to do. And so just understanding that it's a learning curve for all of us, not to say that we have it down pat, because we're still working on it.
Before we put our track shoes back on and run into the next section, also, once you have Mastery Connect under control and you're giving an assessment, it's very easy to open up the standards or the test you're giving and enter the scores in immediately as you're testing. So if you're doing one-on-one or small group testing, you can actually have the test open and record the scores immediately into the system. There's no need to open up and have paper copies of everything and then have to take those copies and run them in the computer or do bubble sheets. You can literally have it open even as an instructor working with the students and then put it directly into the system and be done. That's one of the advantages here we need to look at, so we're not doing more redundancy about scanning and reviewing and copying and pasting and printing. There's ways to do this to minimize our effort generally across the board if possible.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and show from the student end of it what it would look like for our students that are taking this assessment and kind of how they would go through this. So this is just a quick little sample. I think I only had 2 questions on this particular test, but nonetheless, you'll get the idea in terms of what are my students going to experience? How will it come across to them? So from a student's Canvas course, let me go ahead and share screen. You'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm in a student Canvas class. I'm going to go ahead and click on my course for this year. And I know many people operate with under modules, or maybe you operate just simply by clicking on links directly from your Canvas homepage. I want you to understand that the assessment itself lives underneath assignments. So I'm going to go ahead and go to assignments. And then I want you to see that here is the assessment that I had kind of facing to students, and it's just as assignment. I'm going to click on this. And once I do, I'm already starting to take the assessment itself. One of the things that I thought was pretty great was with the way that layout, in terms of if there's a passage, in this case, we're showing a language arts sample, all of the questions that'll be here, and let me scoot this over so it's easier for me to show you, are going to be sitting on this right-hand side. Well, this passage remains here on the left-hand side, almost locked in place. So my students can go as they answer the questions item by item, and they can click on their various responses. One of the things that we know is sometimes, you know, whether it be with the internet timing out, or maybe it's, you know, hey, we had a long day, we only had enough time to fit in 30 minutes, knowing that it will be saved here. There isn't a button that our students need to hit for the assessments to be saved if they're taking the assessment online, that rather any of the work in progress will be preserved the next time that the student logs in. So I want to make sure we're very clear with that. Now, if they click finish the assessment, let's say they hadn't answered all the questions, it tells me that some of the questions are unanswered. Am I sure that I want to be able to submit that? Now, if they did, of course, whatever they didn't answer, as you may very well know, will be marked incorrect. But by and large, students, just a quick little, hey, reminder, you may not have answered everything that was there. They do have the ability to flag. They can expand the window so that they wanted it full screen so that it's not kind of taking this small aspect of things. And then there are some of our different accessibility tools. Now, when you schedule those assessments, it will give you some of the options in terms of what you're going to put forth for your students. but I wanted to make sure we understood at very least where it's going to look like for our students, what it's going to look like for the teachers. One of the things that as I was kind of transitioning to our students, I forgot to mention is what it would look like inside of your gradebook and even whether or not you wanted it there. Because everything is kind of situated here inside of Canvas, it almost as if one thing domino effects impacts the other. So if, let's say, for example, yeah, of course, I understand. I have to set up this MasteryConnect tracker so that I can administer the assessments, but maybe I don't want these to impact the student's grade. Maybe I don't want these to pop up into areas if you're doing your SAS passback. Understanding that the default, if you didn't do anything, would be those two things. It'd be set up for it to go to Aries, then it would be automatically set up for it to be impacting the gradebook. So if you wanted to, as the teacher, to maybe, hey, I don't want that to happen, just know that you have the ability to kind of unclick those boxes, and I can quickly show you that when I go back from the teacher view, or you have the ability to change your mind and maybe push those if you did want it to. Just want to make sure we make that distinction. The default is for both of those to be set in motion. If you didn't want them to impact the gradebook, or you didn't want them to transfer over to Aries to impact the student's grade, because these are benchmarks and they are one factor or one measure, one moment in time of dipstick, if you will. We don't want them to feel that if that's what you want, it doesn't have to directly either positively or negatively impact the student's grade in your course. We'll go ahead and stop acting as this user. And then I'll show you from the teacher's end how to go about those two tweaks that I mentioned. So we're back here in the teacher's class, and I mentioned to you that you should see it automatically populate into your gradebook. I'm going to click on grades. For some reason, I'm not seeing it there. I did a moment ago, but it should populate right here inside of your gradebook in terms of the benchmark itself. And so I want to make sure you understand, if I came back to my course, I could change that assignment so that those two things are unchecked. So the first thing is, you know that it's published here. I'm going to go in and click edit this assignment. Edit the assignment settings. And from here, you have the option to say, do not count towards the final grade, or you have the option to be able to, let's see, where is it to say, display as not graded, whatever it is that you're wanting for it not potentially to count against a student, or if you don't want it to necessarily directly go over to the SAS if you pushed it. So just want to make sure you understood that from the edit settings, you would have to unclick those boxes so that it wouldn't default to go into the gradebook for our students, if that's what you're not wanting. Again, that's from the edit settings of the actual assignment itself. The last thing I wanted to make sure you understood before I pass it back to Jeb to talk about how to access some of the results is just understanding some of the different options here from this assessment. The fact that, as I'll go through just quickly across, this is the information with regards to the assessment. This is just a faux one I made up, so this isn't it. But if you were looking at the assessment itself, you have the ability to print from here. I just want to note that I think that when you are printing the assessments through here, it's not as clean, and I don't know if it's just the formatting for whatever reason. So if you are wanting a hard copy of the assessments themselves, I would highly encourage you to go the route of the Canvas Commons course, the CIA course, that has access to all of the hard documents, but knowing that you have that option here as well. Jeb's going to cover some of the reports aspect of it. Let's see. I think the other one I wanted to is if you wanted to print reports out or print scores out for your individual students, that option here, it gives you a few of the different things that you might be able to interact with, in addition to just being able to look at the assessment itself from either the actual assignments section. The last thing I will show you, just because I want to make sure that I touch on that, what does it slightly look like if you were to come this route? So if I wasn't going through the course navigation, but rather through the global navigation, slightly different. And you'll see that it's over here. I was doing some samples and I was creating some of our trackers, which you do have the ability to add here. It's just that if you were to go the route, which we, again, would encourage you to through your course navigation, that would bypass or eliminate the need for you to be able to sync once again these trackers. So if you made a tracker here, Could you automatically, of course, get it inside of your Canvas course? Yes. In fact, you can still make changes to your tracker once it's housed inside of your course itself. But one of the things I did run into is, let's say you have multiple trackers, which you may end up doing, right? In addition to the one that we're making the curriculum map for you that, as we saw, is having some issues being pushed out to everyone, is the ability to understand that you could update and then remove some of those trackers. So let's say you made a tracker and you, for some reason or other, synced one, and that's, you know what, that's not what I wanted. I want to show you real fast where you could go to your course navigation and unsync that. And I'll do that for this teacher's course that I'm borrowing as well. So that'll be the last thing, and then I'll pass it over to Jeb to show you where to access some of these reports and scores. So from my course, I'm finding my Mastery Tracker icon there. And I'm going to come over here to where it says more, and I'm going to unlink this tracker. And why am I doing this? Because I want you to understand, if you had linked something and maybe you changed your mind, that's not what you want here, just know that it's as easy as unlinking and relinking. It's not like you're set and you're stuck with whatever you have. So I'm going to go in and click unlink tracker. And it says your course is no longer connected to a MasteryConnect tracker. So for the purposes of now, if you had done this while your students, which I would not say, once your students have started the assessment, that whatever was connected to us, in this case, the benchmark, will no longer be visible to our students, because what we've really done is remove the MasteryConnect aspect of things from our Canvas course. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that you know, you're not set in stone, that we can make mistakes, you can remove it. But this is something you kind of want to work through before we actually get our students online taking the test, or whether I start inputting scores manually, because this isn't something you want to change after the fact, because at least if they're in the middle of the test, because it will no longer be available. And I know because I was playing through and I said, oh my God, I went back to assignments and the test, it was there a moment ago, it's no longer there. And that's because I removed the Mastery Tracker in this case. So not to say that the results will be permanently gone, because they're not. It's more so just the assignments and what our students are seeing themselves in our Canvas course.
Okay, if you take a moment, I did try to resend all the curriculum maps and make sure they're distributed properly to everybody. Sometimes it's a matter of settings at our end, sometimes it's a matter at your end, sometimes it's something out of both of our control. So if you weren't able to see it before, take a quick moment and see if you can see it now at this time. I believe 1 or 2 people could see Kinder 2, but not 1, or 1 and 2 and not Kinder. Everything should be there now back on the curriculum maps. That is my hope. If not, we'll continue to look at it, but I tried to do a quick fix while we were actually in session. So we can give a moment to look at that while I pull up my shared screen. And understand, as much as Gabriel and I understand, there's a lot of material coming out, and this is a whole new system. We had EDMs and we had iOS. We all learned that system at one point and got comfortable. We all need to remember too, the first couple of months of all those systems were rough. They were stiff. They were filled with potholes. We're going to get through them. We're going to smile and nod and pump each other on the back of the chest, and we're going to be okay. So in that process, I hope you can get to that now, and I hope you can see those better. The English, the curriculum map, actually, somebody's just put they can see the English, but not the math. The curriculum map for all 3 grades has both English and math inside of it. So they have English and math standards inside of the tracker. So once you open the curriculum map and take a look at the standards as they're listed out, you'll see both English and math in the one place. To help explain a little bit too, as you look forward to curriculum maps in the future, curriculum committees are going to be able to sit down and decide what standards will happen in what order, in what pace across an entire semester, even an entire year. Then these DIAs, let's say next year, or PLC testing, can actually be placed well ahead of time based on the standards that everyone's agreed to at the pace everyone wants to do them, and have a more structured response to this that's agreed upon across the district in terms of, in a sense, a digital planning calendar. So that's what we're looking for. With that, I want to show you before we run out of time, the power of MasteryConnect after the testing is done, because that is part of the goal. If the data is collected and it goes into this digital cloud somewhere, and we can't get it back out to useful, then what is the point of all this? It's not useful to anybody. So I want to show you how it's useful at the teacher level and as a PLC level. If I have time, I'll also try to show you how it's useful in terms of parent-teacher conferences or parent meetings as well. So I have a tracker up of my own. It's just a test body. And in there, I created a test, and I literally just entered these raw scores. So I went down the testing window, and I just assigned scores across the board. MasteryConnect has told me right off the bat who has met or not met or exceeded the standards that are set for this test. Now, there's a couple of different ways to get to it. The easiest way I found is once you're in the tracker, when you put your cursor on top of the title of the standard or the test you're working on, there's this drop-down menu that appears. Lots of different things can happen here. You can print bubble sheets. You can print student scores on an individual level. In this case, I'm just going to go to reports. And a new window is going to open up. This new window includes a lot of tools that are useful for us. First off, right off the bat, it starts off the report with item analysis and shows us how students did answering the individual questions for those standards. I can make decisions to move my way through and look at item analysis. I can look at individual student mastery as a class. And even more powerfully as a PLC, I can look at it across the board in terms of what's happening inside of the PLC as a group. So for instance, maybe my expertise is writing, but somebody else is better at reading. We can see it here in the standards. We can compare notes. We can look at our successes and failures and honestly discuss them and have a tool by which to create those conversations. So we can actually see how everyone's doing as long as everyone gives the same test at relatively the same time. So this produces a powerful ability to look at this. We can also look at student scores. And we can look at these as an individual level. We can look at them as individual questions as well. It's all a matter of choices, what kind of report you want to generate and how you want to see it. Let me see if I can pull up an easy one without making things too confusing. So now what I'm seeing is actually a listing based on the students. You'll notice my creative naming structure, because I didn't want to offend anyone or put any student's name on the list. But what you're seeing here is a chance to see how they're doing based on the standards across the board and their overall scores, so that you have something to work with as you meet with parents during parent conferences or some other tools of that order, or having one-on-one discussions with your students, depending on the grade level and your intent. So this provides a powerful tool to actually let you see and pull this data back out in a simple manner. It's just literally a drop down that allows you to get back to the data itself. And in doing so, gives you the opportunity to get this kind of work done. Now, I know our time is a little close. I know we're working on things. I want to check the question and answer real quick online, see if I left anything there for us. And Gabriel, is there anything new in the chat questions I missed while I was talking?
No, I'm just doing my best to address some of the direct messages that I had gotten while I was speaking. Okay. But nothing that I'm seeing that really pertains to the masses outside of thank you for letting us know, for those of you that it's in terms of the curriculum apps not working. Just want to really drive home the fact that we will do our best to make sure that the solution is resolved, because I know that there's another route that we can go. And so rather than kind of muck the waters and share that other option, there is a fallback if the curriculum apps isn't working. But my understanding is that it's just something we need to kind of on our end to fix, because it is less clicks, less things for teachers need to do. Because if that's not the case, you will have the ability to create a tracker just for your grade level and add the respective standards. Not to say that it's extremely difficult, but our goal is always to make things smoother. And that's not always the case in terms of how things kind of play out. As we know, technology can be our enemy, can be our foe. But at the same time, just understand that we'll do our best to iron out those kinks. So thank you for letting us know the issues that you may be experiencing. We apologize because we want it to be the best and most seamless, but of course, sometimes things happen, and just bear with us as we do our best to resolve those.
And because we had this training early, this gives us time to actually address these issues before the testing window opens. That was also part of our goal, to get teachers into the system and get you a chance to start playing with it a little bit, maybe break it a little bit along the way, but then we have time to fix it. So before it matters, before you need it, we want to make sure you're comfortable. And that was a critical part of trying to get everyone here as early as possible as we could. And we appreciate you coming and trusting us to help you along that path. So as we wrap up, just a couple of things to close. One, the fact that this is recorded, that we will place that available on our helpful links document. We could probably also send an email out to all of those that were signed up for our session. We'll also add the video recording probably on our Tech YouTube channel, and in the notes or in the comments, we'll be able to attach the link for today's presentation. So while it doesn't have all the answers, I know we went through fairly quickly with the expectations for each of the respective grade levels in terms of like what's on my assessment. Just know that you'll have that resource available to you
in addition to the recording. And something else is a step further is we plan to make some, and there's already some recorded already, but smaller segments. So as opposed to watching today's session in its entirety, maybe you're just saying, okay, just show me the clicks, how you would be able to go to, for example, create that tracker or create that curriculum map that was grayed out, wasn't working for me today. There'll be a shorter, small segment video made for those as well. So just know that we're going to do our best on our end to kind of support and meet everyone where they're at. And again, thank you for your patience and understanding as we do our best to kind of get the ball rolling with Mastery Connect, are new to you, but new to us as well.
I just want to close by sharing one small, simple thing with you. If you run into trouble, whenever you're in Mastery Connect, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's this question mark with a circle around it. Never fail to go ahead and hit this. There's two choices. One are online videos, which we have found to be very successful in terms of laying out in smaller chunks how to activate and use the Mastery Connect system. The other method is to use the Help Center, which is text-based documents, and they do quite a good job of using it with involved pictures, step-by-step guides that can help lead you through the process of finding what you need. So for instance, if I just went back to reports, which I tried to show you a minute ago, reports are listed here by teachers. You can just click on a teacher report and it'll show you the step-by-step to get there and the results you should expect to see when you do it. So those are another option for you if you're working on your own time or working on the weekend, for instance, with a glass of wine. Gabriel.